Hey YouTube, welcome back to the Allegheny Northern in N scale. This is an impromptu video that I'm going to do for you today, and it was sparked by one of the viewers commenting that in the past they have used Kato Unitrack and they weren't real happy with it, and one of the issues they were having was with the switches, and it was a twofold issue. One, the switch stopped working, and then two, how do you get the switch out to replace it? So the first part of that is how to get it out. It is very I don't want to say it's simple, because it's not really simple, but there is a technique for it. And what I do is I will take a syringe, which looks just like this, and I'll soak it in, or I'll fill it with either you can use alcohol, or you can use warm water with a soap detergent in it, and I will soak the area here with that mixture. And you know, in this case where it's the ladder into the terminal, you've got to soak a good amount of track in order to get the area free. And as you know, the Kato Unitrack, because it's got the ballast already on it and it's all one piece and clips together, you have to have enough room and enough I guess working space to wiggle it free, so that you don't damage it. So you know, if I was going to replace anything you know, on this ladder, chances are I'm pretty much taking out this entire ladder, which would be a colossal pain. But sometimes that's a lot. I mean, if you go online, you can find these switches. You know, the number 4s I think are around $30, and the number 6s I believe are around 20. So they're pretty expensive. So you don't want to necessarily replace these at every chance that something doesn't go right. So most of the switches, you know, will work just fine. But you can see this one here is getting hung up a little bit. I did the first time, now it seems to be working fine. But you obviously, intermittent issues with switches are a bad thing. So this one here seems to be working just fine. And the reason I'm checking these is because I've been doing a lot of work in this area. But then I come down here and I've got this one that's really sticking. And you can hear it grinding away, which is not good. It means one of two things has happened. Either material has gotten into this moving part here where we throw the switch, which is bad, or it means that my points are fouled. In any event, that will lead to a derailment, because if I'm running remote, it won't switch properly, and you know, if it doesn't align just the way it's supposed to, then you'll have an issue. And you can see right here, it didn't quite close against the rail there. So if a train came through, it's a real good chance it'll pick the switch and end up all over the place. And since it's quite close to the edge of the layout, might end up on the floor. Okay, so how I fix this, one is if I can work the switch and free it up, great. But if I can't, the first step is to take the vacuum cleaner and focus on these areas here, clean out any loose material that may have gotten into the track, okay? And then the second step is to take our trusted rail cleaner. You could use other material, but I use the rail cleaner only because, once again, I'm working around the rails, and I don't want to introduce a water mix to the rails any more than may have already been introduced during the scenery process. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on two main areas. I'm going to focus on right here where the rails attach to the point here, and then I'm going to focus down here, basically where the slide is. And I'm going to clean those areas real good. Just take a little bit of that material on a cotton swab or a sponge. This works pretty well. Be careful you don't get the fibers stuck around stuff, because then you introduce a whole other set of problems. And then we're gonna clean it up. Okay, so I've got the cleaner on, the cotton swabs here. I put a pretty good amount on. I want to get this all nice and soaked, and I want to clean this out. The switch themselves are pretty robust. I mean, they're not gonna fall apart on you just from a process like this. So you can get in there and sort of clean out what might be fouling the switch point. 9 times out of 10, what you're going to find out is that there's a little piece of ballast or some other piece of scenery that's gotten stuck somewhere, and it's just stopping that little, from the switch machine from closing all the way. And you just need to get in there and clean it out. Sometimes just by working the switch, you'll loosen it up and it'll move out of the way. If that is the case, the last thing I recommend you do is take the vacuum back to it and get that cleaned out, just to make sure that you haven't missed anything and it doesn't find its way back onto the track. And I can feel that there's still material inside there that's probably stopping this from working. So I'm going to go ahead and take a vacuum to it and see if I can't clean that out. Okay, so I have vacuumed out the points, I've cleaned them, and as you can see, I'm still getting, occasionally it's locking in there and sometimes it's not. There seems to be something inside that switch, and obviously because it's not closing all the way, what happens is when a piece of rolling stock comes over it, it picks the switch and we end up with this condition. Obviously that's no good for your train. It'll short circuit the layout, pretty bad. So I'm not sure what happened in here. Something's in here, it needs to get cleaned out. So what we're going to do is I'm going to soak this area. Now my advantage is that this is on the edge of the layout, so there's nothing beyond here. So I'm going to soak this in a mix of water and detergent, and I'm going to loosen up this ballast. I'm going to start here at this joint, soften all of this up, and then I think with this piece here and this piece here loose, I'm going to be able to get this switch out. So I'm going to show you that here in just a second. Okay, having used a spray bottle, I've soaked this area here, and you'll see that now this is just sort of scrapes off like wet sand. So I'm going to go ahead and do that with this scenery, just pull this all away, and then gently pry the track up. And as you can see, it pretty much comes right off. So I'm going to set the camera down, I'm going to pull this piece of track out, and then we're going to go ahead and see if we can take this switch apart and see what's going on in here. Okay, you can see the end result here is that I've got a very dirty number 4 Kato switch pulled out. This gravel ballast and scenery material that's around here, it just gets vacuumed up. Don't bother trying to save any of that. Just vacuum all that mess up and we're going to start fresh. So we're going to go ahead and take this switch over to the workbench and see what our issue is. Okay, so now that the back of the switch has been removed, let me kind of give you an idea of what we're looking at here. So these components over here, these are part of the power routing system that Kato uses. So you don't want to touch that. You don't need to mess with that. This is the solenoid that actually makes that happen, and these are the power feeds that run from your auxiliary power, to make this whole thing work. Now, this thing here with this little metal rod, this is the switch. This is what actuates the switch. That's what's controlling the point sliding back and forth. So first thing is you want to make sure that is free and clear, and you can see that's where we're hanging up. Something's hanging up here. So we're going to examine this area right here. We're going to check the location of this little piece of brass wire here to make sure that's in place. Be very careful how you take all this apart, because it needs to go back together the exact same way. So I'm going to just poke around in here and see if I can find out what the issue is, and I'll report my findings here in just a second. A little more aggressive. So what I did was, there is that plastic piece that holds the two rails together, and one of the things that I like about most of the Kato pieces is they are basically snapped together. So all I did was pull that apart, and as you can see now, my two rails are, they're not connected anymore. But this is how they're put together, so I'm not worried about taking it apart and not being able to get it back together or anything. What I did find out was this area here had, it looked like diluted white glue, my guess is, from when I was ballasting. Some of it must have drifted inside, so I've cleaned that all out. So I'm going to go ahead and put this back together, and let's see what we got. And, okay, YouTube, it's now reassembled, and as you can see, we're back to nice operating status. So this switch has been repaired. What I ended up determining was the issue was there had been some glue that had dripped down inside here, and it was fouling this up just enough that this point was sticking as it was sliding back and forth. At this point, you're pretty much done with the repair, but you've got the fun little task of getting this reinstalled. Now, it'll reinstall just like it came out. You got to just sort of work it with the Unitrack couplers so that they'll go together, but it will go back in. I've already prepped the area for it, so let's go ahead and get this switch back onto the track. Okay, so after some tinkering, here we are, functional switch again, back up and running. Now, what I didn't show you off camera was that I ended up, it was really gunked up in here. And what I think happened was when I did ballast, I must have been very haphazard and didn't have either this point protected or it got under the protection. Something happened here, so this really became clogged up and I had to do some serious work to get it cleaned out. My advice to you when using either the Kato or any of the switch machines that you may use, when you're ballasting and doing other scenery work, maybe even not right near the track, cover these moving components. Make sure nothing can get down into the switch machine if yours is set up like this. If you don't have this, you got an under table mount, then you're least safe from that. Make sure that the pins are free moving. Make sure that your points here, that these are clear. Keep them protected because they move just as much as the front points here. So make sure you're covered back here, and then of course, make sure this, because this needs to slide, make sure this stays clear and free of any kind of debris. All told, I probably have maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours total, taking this thing apart, trying different things, cleaning different things, getting it back up and running. For a $30 switch, it might be worth it to you, it might not be worth it to you to just replace it if you damage it that way. I think most of us in the modeling world to some degree like to tinker with things. So for me, it became a personal vendetta against this switch machine that I was going to get it to work come hell or high water. I didn't mind taking the time to fix it. In the process, yeah, I probably spent 2 hours with it. And now, of course, I'm going to have scenery repair, which you would have in any event, whether you buy a new switch machine or not. But the old one's back, it's functioning. I took that time to realign the ladder a little bit, which was a little wonky. So it was okay for me. It was a project that I was going to do anyway. So that's how you can take these babies apart. That's how you can get them fixed. If it's easier for you just to replace them, then there's no shame in that. But for me, I like to take things apart and make them work again. So that's what I did here. So it can be done. All I can say is give it a try and see if you can salvage it.